Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gig Member Q&A call. Today is Tuesday, July the 23rd, 2024. Your host, Scott Massey and James Cronk with you. James, I'm excited for today's call for two reasons. Number one is our guests, and number two is our topic. And we're privileged to have two great gentlemen with us today. First off, a new friend of ours, Scot Wellman from Landscapes Golf Management. We've known Scott for, I'd say, 3 months or so, maybe. And then an old friend of ours, Matt Welliver from Lightspeed, who we've probably known for 30 years. So excited to have them both joining us. And we're going to talk about all things technology in the world of golf club management. And, for me, there's a lot of really cool technologies out there right now that are helping clubs operate more efficiently and effectively. Great tools like Notify that help clubs, resell a tee time quickly that's just been canceled, to automated mowers that can cut rough at 2.5 inches, but also all the way down to like 0.03 of an inch for greens. And then there's also drones out there now that are spraying herbicides and insecticides, which obviously saves labor and prevents team members from being exposed to chemicals. So there's so much cool stuff happening. That just only scratches the surface of it. And I really don't know a lot, compared to Scott and Matt, and that's why we've got them with us today, because they know way more about this stuff than you and I do. So much cool tech that we're going to hear about today, and I'm really excited to learn more about it. So super excited for today's call for sure.
Yeah, Scott, I agree with you 100%. Gig Nation, welcome to our this month's July live Q&A call. And Scott, without further ado, let's bring on our rock star guest. Let's get this thing going.
All right.
Scott, Matt, gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you might happen to be in the world. Well, you're going to tell us in a minute because I'm going to ask you. But Matt, it's always great to see you again. We have pictures from back in the day. That's why Matt is on this call today, because we've got blackmail pictures that he has of us and we have of him, because we've known Matt for a long time. And Matt, you're going to share with our audience, but so interesting how your journey has gone in so many different places and led now with Lightspeed Golf and all the great things that Lightspeed are doing in the golf industry. And Scott, fascinating to have a company that's a management company and also in the construction business of golf courses and such a huge footprint in the United States with Landscapes Golf Management. And we've certainly had a lot of fun learning about all the things that you guys do in the last many months. So welcome to our Gig Member Q&A call, gentlemen.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
And Matt, why don't you start, man? Why don't you just give our listeners a little bit of your journey? Leave out the part about the pictures, Matt, and leave out all the stories of when we worked together back in the day. And as what Scott said 30 years ago, I think it might be more than that, actually. But anyway,
that's for the beer in the bar somewhere at a conference for sure.
Exactly. But let's start with you, Matt. Give us a little bit of our listeners your journey.
Yeah. So, I started off in the, in the golf world, starting as, a cart boy, and took my 3-year golf management program and decided to get into computers and leave golf, and kind of realized, and, there's a great fit for me in club technology. So 24 years later, here I am still doing the same thing. Been acquired 3 times, associated with about 10 different tee sheets, and I'm going to say thousands and thousands of golf courses I've worked with, and it's been amazing. It's been a great life, and I just enjoy this industry a ton, and get to, have great friends such as yourselves, and working with amazing people like Scott. So,
and Matt, when you imagine like remember when we were pen and pencil with tee sheets? I mean, when I first started working at Marine Drive Golf Club, and Scott and I back in the day, it was pen and pencil forever. And then look at how far, and maybe not how far, but look at how far technology has come really in the world of just even tee sheets. Forget about all the other stuff.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, I was even helping golf courses on DOS systems. That's how crazy it goes, in moving scores around the world for their handicap systems, and it's been amazing just to see how far this industry's gone in tech, and where it's going to go is probably where it really excites me.
That's the exciting part.
Yeah.
And Scott, yeah, your interesting background. Share with a lot of listeners a little bit about you and landscapes, please.
Yeah, well, I am curious if Matt had running water and electricity back when he started in the industry, but I was the grandson of a golf course superintendent, so I grew up on a golf course, and the minute I could walk, I had a golf club in my hand, and I knew I wanted to be in the industry, and had the good fortune of working as a golf professional in the industry for, 7 or 8 years, and actually broke away for 12 years and went and worked at State Farm Insurance, primarily in data analytics and competitive intelligence, kind of supporting about 16,000 State Farm agents across the U.S. And I was wanting to get back into the business at some point, and an opportunity came open at Landscapes Golf Management to be the director of marketing and revenue management, and to kind of help lead not only our marketing tactics and revenue tactics, but also what we'll talk about today, our technology stack as well.
And Scott, Landscapes has how many courses that you guys oversee and manage? And
Yeah, so we have about 60 relationships across the U.S., and those are a variety of public and private, and kind of split evenly amongst public and private, and anywhere from daily municipal golf courses all the way up to your high-end private facilities as well.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. Love it. And so how do you guys work together? I know that Lightspeed and Landscapes, and Matt, maybe you can start off, but how do you guys work together?
Yeah, so we work with the majority of their clubs that they have the management contracts with, where they can put in technology and software and whatnot. But so how many courses are we installed at now, Scott?
31, 32, roughly. Yep.
So everywhere from our tee sheet, point of sale, food and beverage, and a ton of integrations. And I think that's what makes our partnership very unique, is with Landscapes amongst some of our other relationships, is that Landscapes really embraces the integration model, the best of breed approach. And that's where I kind of stepped in a bit, because that's where I play a lot in this space. So that's kind of my interaction involvement with Landscapes.
And so you use the word integrations, and like Scott mentioned earlier on, there's so much that you don't know what you don't know, as they say, right? And so you guys live and breathe the world of revenue management, tee sheet management, marketing, sales and marketing, maximizing ROI and all those types of things. And so between both of you, Scott or Matt, when you kind of talk about integration with other platforms, like, can you just explain what that actually is, and give some examples, if you'd be so kind?
Yeah, so Matt could probably give you the technical side of it. From my perspective, when we made the decision to kind of go all in with Lightspeed about 5.5 years ago, the main reason was we were working with probably 350 different technology providers, and we just felt that there was a huge opportunity to be more strategic, be more streamlined, be able to take control of our data in a better way, and warehouse that data and start to leverage it in some new and unique ways. And so when we looked at a variety of vendors in this space, Matt and his team really, really stood out with their open API and how developed it was, and our ability to work with different providers and say, hey, listen, we want you to be a part of our ecosystem, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to partner with Lightspeed in some way, shape, or form. And so the fact that they've got the infrastructure for us to be able to take advantage of, to build those integrations in a very inexpensive way, is a huge part of what we've been able to develop and build to where we are today.
And how many systems now are we integrated to now, Scott?
Gosh, we're probably approaching 40 different integrations. Yep.
Okay, Matt. So explain that. Explain what a typical club, that's got all the, as Scott said, they've got multiple things. We always talk about this, the single point of entry, we've always said, why can't one organization kind of make it all work? We've all had POS systems that we love and POS systems we hate, and sometimes we love them and hate them. It's the same one. So to explain what integrations are and some examples about what Lightspeed does with them, I guess.
Yeah, and I think I've kind of lived a lot of the different lives, being the one-stop shop where you do it all. But what makes Lightspeed and Lightspeed Golf very unique is the fact that we take this approach of working with other software applications to provide the solution set at the golf course, or as in Lightspeed's case, like they're in a retail vertical and a restaurant vertical as well. So you can imagine what those businesses are like and how they're evolving with technology, especially with COVID and what happened there. Like the systems are designed and they take the thought and the resources are in place to ensure that other companies can work with the application and the data so that we can be focused on what we do best, right? And that's being a T-sheet software company, being point of sale, being restaurant, and allowing us to leverage very smart people that are sitting there today thinking about, I need to, there must be a better way to do this better, right? And Notify is a perfect example of that, right? And the different waitlist vendors that have come out there is they just invented this idea, and how simple it is. It's golf courses are seeing amazing ROI on that, and we are going to now allow ourselves to just stay focused on what we do best and work with these different vendors that are innovating other small niche areas of the business. And that to me is one of the fundamental strengths of who Lightspeed is.
So Scott, I think you guys mentioned kind of 40 integrations. Notify, I assume, is one, right? So what are some other I guess applications or software providers that you guys integrate with?
Yeah, so Golf Genius, the ability to bring in your everybody that's registered for a particular event straight into your tee sheet, that capability. One that Matt and I are kind of midstream working on, that we've been working on for a few weeks, is a hotel PMS integration, which isn't unique. A lot of providers like Lightspeed already have a hotel PMS integration where they're passing the charges back to the hotel PMS company to have a consolidated statement, that you get when you check out from your room. But a lot of the development that Landscapes Unlimited, Landscapes Golf Management has been investing in the last few years has been destination private clubs. So where we have on-site lodging, but we don't necessarily want an outside system to manage, the hotel charging process. And so we're kind of reverse engineering that process, which really hasn't been done before, where we're kind of taking the hotel charges and putting them onto a member statement so that they can get that at the end of the month and have accountability that way. So, there's a lot of those types of things that start with kind of business questions that arise on my end, and they evolve into conversations between Matt and I around how we can solve for that. Is there a current, integrator that exists that we can work with, or is it somebody that we need to go out and source that can work with the API, and then the development of that integration works from there.
And so, Matt, not to get too technical, and we're going to get onto some operator questions in a minute, but is that what it is now, these open platforms, right? I mean, you see all these, like you go to a conference now and the amount of technology that is now, like you talk about Golf Genius and Notify and Tag Marshall and there's various, POS companies and yield management companies and all kinds of technology that's being developed, and imagine what's coming down the pipe. So is that kind of a Lightspeed specialty in that integration of other partners that set you apart? Is that from maybe other POS systems? Is that what you're saying?
100% it is. And the other systems out there, they do integrate, right? But what Lightspeed offers is, I'm going to say, a substantial number of integrated systems. Like just take restaurant inventory, for an example, right? Like we have a plethora of systems out there that can integrate into Lightspeed. So they're not just sort of like a golf course isn't fixed to one golf system that as doing inventory for a restaurant, but you have the option of working with a multitude of different vendors out there. So you get to shop some of these different systems. So you have choice in that. Lightspeed has something, but I can tell you what, there's a world out there that's very complex when it comes to that type of inventory management, right? And there's various different needs. So, you know, today it's about choice, really, what it's down to, and that's what. And we have a team of dedicated developers, dedicated onboarding for the integrations themselves, and going through a proper process. And then, more importantly, is the support of that API with any questions that they have or any issues that come up. So like Lightspeed as a whole has entire departments that support that, which is different than anywhere that I've worked before.
How many golf courses is Lightspeed in, Matt, in North America?
Ooh, well, we're just over 1,800 courses total. And I think we're in and around the 1,400 mark for North America. Yeah, there's a big following over in France and Europe.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So Scott, if you're an operator, obviously, and you guys take on a management company of a new club, and they've got a pen and pencil tee sheet that they're still working with. You know, what are the questions, whether it's a POS system or whether it's other tech platforms? And when you talk about, you used to have 300 or so or whatever it was, and now you're down to 40 or plus. But what are the questions that you're asking when you're trying to figure out how to navigate with all this technology, like in all these platforms, and how do you decide when to bring something in, when not to bring something in? What are the questions that as an owner operator you should be asking when considering what technology to use, I guess?
Sure. So a lot of the questions originate from the facilities themselves. So there's some sort of business issue or something they'd like to establish at their facilities that they think will, move their business forward. And so off of that, some of the initial questions are you cloud-based? So when we made this shift to Lightspeed, we also committed to being cloud-based. And the reason for that is that golf courses are typically not very savvy when it comes to predicting when hardware needs will come about. And with how far along Google Workspace and Office 365 have come, as well as file sharing services, whether that's Dropbox or you name it, really a golf course can be 100% in the cloud and not reliant on an on-premise server at this point anymore, which can be a very costly piece of equipment to replace. And it's typically one of those things where it's hitting capacity or it's about ready to go out on you, and it's immediate. And hey, we need to come up with $10,000 to $20,000 today to fix this thing. So being a cloud-based product is extremely important. Want to know, what does support look like? Are there options for self-service support? How easy is it to get somebody on the phone if we need to, or email somebody to get a hold of somebody and to get a resolution quickly? What does their roadmap look like? I have the good fortune that Matt and I and Fraser have regular conversations about, what is coming down the pipeline, and an opportunity for us, hopefully, to help shape, what that might look like and provide feedback. But at the same point, we know what's coming down. We can prepare for it. We're ready to implement it when it comes about, and to make it mainstream. So, those are a handful of things, but we never make a decision in what I call a vacuum, right? Like, I think oftentimes you will find people at a facility that, hey, these are the 4 or 5 things I hate about XYZ software. And as long as the software company up the street can answer those questions positively, then you're like, hey, this is great. We should move forward with that. But at the same point, you might be giving up the 5 to 10 things that you really like about your software today. And so I think it's almost as important to understand what it is that you're looking for and what business questions you're trying to answer or solve for. But at the same point, don't replace something with something else that, is going to be inferior in other places. And I remember reading a book back in the day, Moving the Cheese, right? You're just moving the cheese somewhere else and creating other problems for yourself. And so I think if you have good support, you have a good, relationship like we do with Lightspeed, then, you're going to have future growth together as two companies.
Well, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but sometimes staff can be resistant to change. And especially when it comes to things like technology and ringing in green fees and all that stuff. Do you guys have any secrets about ways to get team members and the frontline staff to kind of embrace kind of this technology when these changes do happen, when you bring in a new platform? And I mean, we talk about this all the time. You can have the greatest thing ever, but if no one's using it, or if they're then it's why are you paying for it? But getting people to, especially when you look at our business, that you could literally have a 65-year-old retired lady that's in the golf shop standing beside a 16-year-old working her first job. That and not to make any generalized statements about knowing technology, but what my point is that people come from different shapes and sizes. So what's your experience in that? And certainly from Matt, how do you guys support that? And from Scott's standpoint, you obviously must have had some hiccups along the way of various different types of things. And how do you get through that and get over that? So I'll start with you, Matt.
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing is when we're kind of dealing with these different scenarios, it really comes down to time, right? Is the operators understanding the amount of time that goes into setting up the system, right? And some people get it like that. They understand, they're whizzing through, they're using our online chat or our online, portal to figure out what to do next, right? But then you have a completely different demographic that's like, I want somebody in front of me, or I need it in my hand. Like, walk me through this, right? And so it's very critical that you have to be able to adapt to your audience, right, when you're doing the implementations. And I can tell you this, that from what Lightspeed does today versus what I did before, I'm actually seeing the trend of going from on-site to online to now do a hybrid model where operators are kind of going back to that. Hey, we used to be able to do this pretty quick online, but I'm not getting what I need out of it, because when someone's not there, they're not really taking it all seriously, or they're being distracted, right? So when you can grab those people, put them in a room with you, and and train them, you get a different result. So it's definitely comes down to considering what works best for the club nowadays. Yeah. And
Scott, what's your experience been?
Shock collars. No, I'm just kidding. It's funny you should bring this up, because we were just discussing this today for our upcoming sales and marketing conference in October, that with AI, that change adoption is going to be something that's massively critical. But what Matt and I have kind of created together is what I think is a great process that he was kind of outlining, in that installs we used to have people come in for 2 or 3 days, and it was like you're at the blackjack table. They clap their hands to walk away from it, and you're turned over to support, and you don't see that implementation person ever again. And so our process really is about 60 days long to implement Lightspeed. Like, we start with contracts, payment processing, contracts, getting hardware figured out, working through that stuff in the first 30 days, and then an intentional, next 30 days of several training calls, breaking out the T-sheet and the retail software and the restaurant software, and then eventually getting into the integrated partners. And then it doesn't stop once implementation goes live. that implementation team is hanging with us for a couple weeks after go live to have, a handful more calls to see what you're seeing once you've gone live, because, there's a lot of things that just make sense when you're going through implementation, but once the bullets are flying, you may want to change your processes a little bit. And so having that partner that walks through it with us, and this is all virtual. I think we've only had one golf course, Matt, that we've ever had anybody on the ground, and maybe we'll change that in the future. But I feel like it's something that's digestible and something that people can really absorb. And it is overwhelming. Change is overwhelming, but at the end of the day, we're not just kind of coming in and just throwing everything through a fire hydrant, in 2 days and walking away and hoping you absorb some of that. It's a really intentional 60 to 75 day process.
And do you always do it, Scott, in the off season?
Most generally, yes. Most generally, when we want to add anything from Matt's end, another integrator, most generally we'll do those over the winter months. But we have use cases too where somebody just wants to get out of what they have, or they have to get out of what they have. And so, we're pretty flexible when it comes to that. But ideally, it is nice when, they're not pulled in other directions to answer the phones or those types of things.
Cool. So we're getting to the part now in our conversation where I should have a cash register, and then every time we mention another technology company, like I'm gonna ka-ching, right? And then we're going to send them a bill because we're going to, giving people free advertising in this exercise. But in all seriousness, what I'm wondering about, and from, your experiences on the ground and out in the market, Scott and both Matt, what are the technology pieces? What are these integrations that are having the biggest impact on your business? On the success of your facilities, what are the ones that are game changers from your experience, Scott, and then Matt? I want to get your opinion about what you obviously have 1,800 customers and many of them are going to use some of the same integrations that are the popular ones. You talk about Notify and others, but Scott, let's start with you.
Yeah, so the biggest one, Metolius Golf. So the work that Ross Liggett is doing at Metolius Golf was one of our biggest business questions when we moved to Lightspeed. I think every golf course needs to be interested about warehousing their data. So in the future, if you want to leverage AI in any sort of fashion, one of the first things you need to do is get your data centralized. So it's not just the Lightspeed data, but it's your Facebook data, your Instagram data, your website data, your Google business profile data. You can go on and on and on, but centralizing that data in a warehouse that you can leverage in the future is number one critical. More recently, Notify has been a huge partner of ours that we've started to deploy and see big ROI on at a handful of facilities. Golf Genius is one that we use in a limited fashion today, but looking to see how we can grow that. Pitch CRM, Del Radcliffe's Pitch CRM. We work with that. It's really nice to have every customer and member syncing to your email platform and your text messaging platform, and to be able to send automated campaigns off of that. So those are just a few of the 40, but at the end of the day, they're probably the bigger ones that we're working with today.
Matt, maybe in addition to what you're going to add to that, go in a little bit more detail, if you don't mind, for our listeners about Metolius, Notify, a couple other, what exactly do they specialize in, and how does it work? But what would you add, Matt?
Yeah, I would, there's some pretty neat innovation coming from companies like Golfback that are really digging into email marketing, but it's just not an email tool. Now it's more about similar to what Metolius does, but in the engagement side as well. But then also automating like rules that will tell the operator, hey, you're low or something's happening. Do you wish to implement this now? Like, and that's awesome, just to be able to say yes through a text. Like that to me is where I see the future going, is a business being able to take a lot of the thinking away from their operators as they are busy, and being able to put certain rules in place. Like we used to have the old reorder point report for inventory, right? And run your report. It tells you you're low on something, go order it, right? But it's like now taking that to another level. Dynamic pricing systems that are out there. There's some pretty neat stuff going on, especially with Price Swing and Orca and working with what they have going on. Like that's like they're getting pretty deep into the price and the characteristics of that golf course and what's going on with them, right? And it's taken into account not only weather but playing trends that are going on. So that is where we're going to see, I feel, a lot of evolvement with integrations, but more layering in like the AI side of things and getting more precise in like these operations that can be executed very simply but are very complex in nature, right? But in addition to sort of that world, there's a lot of the common integrations, like working with Golf Now for online bookings. Like there's a lot of different companies out there that are reselling tee times for golf courses, in many different ways and forms. We're getting into like GPS with carts like Tag Marshal or Eyes On, be able to order food right from the cart, and all that data is pulling right from our system so that you're not having to re-enter sales or double track inventory. And because of the cloud, like Scott said, like this is how we're able to do all of that, right?
We're going to talk about golf now in a minute. Scott, you got 30 facilities you're looking at, and what are the questions that you're trying to answer in deciding where does Notify work? Where does this integration work? What's the, how much ROI is there got to be to kind of, justify and make the change and do whatever? So are there some questions that you ask an operator, a GM, that to try to figure out what and when and who, that kind of decision? So because as Matt said, and as we know, right, this is the thing. There are so many things out there. There's so many options out there. It's like there's so many shiny objects. You got to figure out what do you pick and where do you go. So, there you go. We had this question lined up, Scott. I didn't even know that. But so what does Landscapes Golf Management look for when making decisions on the who, why, and how they decide on what tech to implement?
Yeah, so Notify is a great example. A year prior to them coming about, we had tried to internally develop our own wait list, and it just wasn't very functional to actually get adoption at the facility level. And so my first conversations with Jake were, hey, this is great. Tell me about your software. What does it do? Can you integrate with Lightspeed? Because that's going to be super critical. And more importantly, that integration with Lightspeed, I want to understand the ROI that I'm getting back from, people that you're helping us book cancel tee times through. So I can literally go through every golf course today. I can see every reservation that was booked because they received a notification from Notify. And I can see the total ROI that they're delivering at each facility. So, in terms of probably dumbing it down to what are the most important questions, cloud-based is number one. Do you integrate? If you don't integrate, you better be a really dang good software to be standalone, right? You better really be delivering something that's of value in order to sit outside of our ecosystem. What does support look like? Who are some of the people you're working with today so we can get some references? How many facilities are you installed at? So we can get an idea. Are we like your beta tester, or are we somebody who is, you're established in the market, and, somebody who has kind of a history behind them a little bit. So those are some of the things. There probably are other specific questions to specific softwares that we might ask, but those are some of the high level basic ones that would come right out of the chute.
Awesome. I invite our listeners, if anyone that are live today, if they've got a question, to put it in the chat box and post a comment, and we'll do our best to get to it if it's not on my list of questions. Matt, when you guys think about integrating and who with, is it whoever wants to, or do you guys have some discretion of some kind that you make decisions about? Because I don't know, it feels to me like I go to a lot of conferences all over the world, and I see a lot of trade shows, and I don't know, maybe everyone's there every other, maybe there's, well, I sure know the players that keep going. I sure know the players that have started off and existed, and now 10 years later, they're still there with their booth. But I also feel like I've seen people come and go and don't show up. So what? Tell me about that, if you don't mind, Matt.
Yeah, so I get 1 to 2 requests a week to integrate,
Okay.
right? And I love to listen and just hear about what they're trying to do, and hear their story, right? At the end of the day, right, like there's only so much resources we do have as a technology company, and we do have a priority that we have to maintain, and that is to our customers. So if our customers are asking and they have interest of someone already ready to go, then I'm certainly open to integrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if this is a company that just has a good idea, I will support them. But, they do need to go and find those customers themselves and sell it, right? Our team can't do that for them. We really need to make sure that there's buy-in from the customer first. So that's really where I start. And then the second side is, what does their development team look like? Is it outsourced? Have they developed an integration before? How many clients do they have, and how many integrations have they built? Because I have done integrations that have gone so smooth because they are very much used to doing this. But then there's those where you're having to teach them a lot, and those typically aren't good experiences, right? And they go down paths, and it doesn't kind of take them to where they need to be. So there's definitely a process in place. We also have, legal side of things, like around the use of our API and what they do with that data. And the evolution of AI is very important because, that data and what they're doing with it can't be taken into the public domain now, right? Like that, the AI world, like I'm learning this really quickly because every second request now I have is we're doing something with AI and we want access to all your data. And it's like, hold on, we need to think this through a bit more, right? So,
well, and here, so just leads into a great example about this Golf Now issue, right? So for those people that might not be aware, lots being talked about right now about, this might be unfair, but my interpretation is, that Golf Now is kind of hijacking people's book online T-sheet button on Google, which is sending them not to the golf course's direct booking engine, but sending it to the Golf Now booking engine. Good for Golf Now. Whoever they can, I'll just say it right now. I'm not a Golf Now fan. I don't believe in anyone giving up their tee sheet or access to the tee sheet and bartering and tee times. I've advised my clients always to not be in that space. But there's a lot of chatter, and even the NGCOA United States have come out with a statement about it. Gathering other tee sheet integrators and making sure that everyone's educated to kind of battle this. And it gets a little bit to that point, Matt, about if you're not careful, your data can get hijacked, your tee sheet can get hijacked, your information get hijacked. I mean, Scott, what's your thoughts about that issue, I guess, that's going on right now?
Sure. So, if you take a step back, we've probably all gone to a Google business profile to book a table reservation, right? To dine at, especially if you've been to Vegas, you've probably, used that to get through Open Table and try to book a reservation. So it's not like this is a unique concept. I guess my major concern around it is I actually am in favor of having a book online button in a Google business profile. First of all, if you look at our 16 public golf courses that we fully manage, we have almost 300,000 profile visits this year to date, and we had almost 600,000 profile visits last year, of which 30% are clicking on the website button, which that's probably a good representation of people that are going to book tee times. So it tells you there's a strong marketplace there for people to find you on Google and then to get to you to book a tee time. So the process is one that probably makes sense. My biggest concern is on the website SEO side of things. So if that is going to a third-party provider, you're now directing those people away from your website and to the third party's website. You're benefiting their SEO, not your own. And so I feel very fortunate that I have partners like Matt and Fraser that, we've been, since this came out, we've been conversing about it pretty much weekly and what's the right approach here. But I also feel very fortunate that, again, I have my data warehoused. I have it visualized in dashboards. I can see how many hits are coming to my Google business profiles by course. And I also can see what the volume of people are that are visiting my website. So at the end of the day, I will know exactly what the impact is if that traffic starts going away from my website. And I think that's the piece that could have a negative impact on golf courses is, losing that SEO where primarily people are visiting your websites to book tee times today. So outside of that, though, I think it's a generally accepted form for people to go out and find a business, book a tee time. And so if we can make that process better and we can maintain the SEO of the website, then that's a win-win for everybody.
Matt, any additional thoughts, comments?
Oh, I got lots. Yeah. No, I was on the call with the NGCOA US
Yes.
and with Google and other teaching providers. And, it was actually quite a bit of a learning curve for me. We've always talked about the idea of being able to have what we call like a headless booking engine, meaning like you can embed the tee times right in there. But I really learned that, Google isn't supporting that model today, that they actually just took a different approach, which is allowing a business such as Golf Now be linked to their appointments module if they can prove that they have the acceptance from the golf course to do this. So it really kind of, if you peel the onion back, it's like read your fine terms.
Yeah.
Because it is in there, I'm not going to say verbatim, but back in my day when I worked with similar companies, there was the ability for them to work with affiliates and other partners, right? So that's what Google's done with Golf Now. But what's interesting is now this is going to open up a can of worms for other vendors to be able to add the ability to book. But Google isn't going to allow that button to be the course's website. It's going to need to be the technology provider's booking platform, right? So so Golf Now has that, but other tee sheets don't have a marketplace or somewhere to send them to than just their website, right? So where is all this going to land is going to be really interesting, and having the NGCOA on board and kind of making sure that Google is aware of what are the best practices is going to be very important, because Google doesn't understand this, right? Like what Golf Now does and the impact and the perception of what they're trying to do. So we're going to definitely see some changes. We're looking at it and what we can do to help with that. Technically, you can have 3 or 4 different options listed to book, and that's ultimately where you can go, or where we could take this as a tee sheet provider. But on the other side, you can also call. The procedure is the golf course has to call Golf Now to ask to be removed. Google won't remove the course. won't remove that button. It has to come from Golf Now. So
Yeah.
it's completely different than what I thought going into it.
It's really something. It's a dog's
Yeah.
breakfast a little bit.
It is, yeah.
Scott, we got a question from an audience member, and then I've got a follow-up question. Why don't you take that on?
Yeah, just a great question from Craig here about Notify, and just curious if we can dive a little deeper on specific ROI numbers that you might be seeing, Scott, with Notify. I mean, it's a simple idea, but it's brilliant. It's such a cool platform for me. I love it. So just love to learn a little bit more about ROI specifically, if you can share that.
Yeah, it does vary by golf course, and we are finding that, and I don't know if this is necessarily something that you wouldn't expect to see, but golf courses that are highly utilized definitely are seeing a much higher ROI than golf courses, that have regular available tee times.
Sure.
The other thing too is that the ROI tends to be a lot higher at facilities that have a really robust cancellation policy in effect. So if you're not forcing your consumers to actually cancel within 24 or 48 hours of their tee time without some sort of corresponding penalty, you're probably not incentivizing them to give you that courtesy call, or that, have them go back online and cancel that tee time themselves in order for you to start generating a proper amount of notification. So I think those are probably two of the biggest takeaways I've seen so far in terms of our ROI. And, Jake and I are kind of going through some numbers right now and analyzing some different things. One thing that I will say that maybe has been a little bit of a surprise is we came out of the gates last August with a lot of marketing behind it. And it seems like the adoption really ticked up this June. And so it takes a little while, I think, for the consumer to get comfortable with what it is, what it's doing, understand it, maybe go through it a time or two before they really start to settle into it. But our numbers in June in terms of notifications sent was a lot higher in June than it had been any of the previous months.
Cool.
And I'm assuming, to answer Craig's question directly, the reality is that you're only going to keep a platform if it's paying for itself, and you're on the positive side of the expense revenue equation. But my follow-up question a little bit, Scott, is in your experience in landscapes, has there been a tech, and we'll put Lightspeed aside, has there been a technology that you've implemented that has had what you would consider to be the biggest impact on your total revenues as an organization? And when I say revenues, it might also be a savings in efficiencies in labor too, because that's money in the bank. Whether if you're not spending it or you're making it, it's still money. So is there a technology that you would say, you know what, this one is really a technology that we've added, or an integration we've added that has had the biggest impact on our bottom line?
That's a pretty easy answer.
Great.
But it's not easy. It's not easy for golf courses to, I think, get set up. But certainly golf courses of ours that have invested in the entertainment space, golf simulators, top tracer driving ranges, those types of things, it's not uncommon for them to see, $250,000 to $500,000 in return on revenue annually. But on the flip side, you're asking an owner, of a golf course to make a $500,000 to $1 million investment to get that type of return. And not everybody is willing to make that investment or wants to make that investment. But certainly golf courses that are making those investments are seeing some of the most significant returns in revenue as a result of it. And I would tell people, we have many golf courses that host weddings and banquets and so forth, right? And that business has been very, very challenging since COVID. You're seeing less people at events. You're seeing more destination weddings. I've even read, some studies that people being locked up for a couple of years, they didn't date, and it takes 3 years for a relationship to develop. So at the end of the day, those spaces that were once maybe huge revenue sources for you have maybe been a challenge the last few years. Maybe it's time to rethink those spaces, right? Rethink them into some golf simulators or some different spaces. And there are some other advantages beyond revenue in terms of keeping staff on year long, some of your key staff, those types of things. So you're not going through a whole new rehiring process the following year. But those golf courses that have made those types of investments are seeing big time returns.
Cool. I couldn't agree more. And you hear when I'm listening to speakers or I'm at conferences listening to panels talking about technology. You hear that all the time from a lot of management companies that have multiple properties that can really see the literally with their eyes, they can see the impact that adding that kind of technology can do to their site. So let's get to the magical question of the moment, which is about the future and AI. And I read an article this morning about. Well, I was fascinated. It was about golf tech. Actually, it was about golf tech's technology that was used at the Open. And you talk about Top Tracer, and then there's this article about golf tech's analysis of golf swings and how Rory's 13-degree head tilt is what makes him hit the ball 20 yards longer than most people, or something like that. But everyone's going to be tilting their head another 10 degrees tomorrow, I can tell you. So. And that's the thing about the benefits and the dangers of AI in the golf tech space, because as Matt said, AI is a bit of a Wild West right now in the world. But I guess what do you guys see as the opportunities? Is there anything coming down the pipe that you think is going to be a game changer that you've heard about or that you've seen about, besides Golf Industry Guru and all the wonderful things that we're doing with the toolbox and eGolf Cart Waiver? Little plug there. But what are the benefits and dangers of AI in the golf tech space?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. What the things that I'm starting to see are really going to be around the automation of tee time reservations and the logic behind that. Del Ratcliffe and his team, Mana, Course Rev is their company. They came out with a pretty impressive booking tool that's actually through the phone, but it's you're engaged with it on the phone, because 60-70% of the reservations today are still made through the phone, right? And so their tool is being able to adapt to different ways of saying how many players are you going to be bringing. They're like, me and my dad. Well, AI knows that's 2. Before, with IVR, no way. You had to punch in 2 or say 2-3 times before you can get it right.
Right.
So that's in the immediate side. I think we're going to see a lot of that coming out. And then I think on the long-term side, it's really going to be around the marketing. I think that there's still like this black box of how do we market to the right people at the right time, and hiring companies and marketing companies to do this for you. But I actually see that this is the way that a lot of the stuff is going to start to become more automated and more dynamic. That's where I think it's going to go. Outside of the standard, reporting, analytics and things that are, already in place and being evolved. But I'm pretty excited to see where it goes myself. And Lightspeed as a whole is working with AI on a number of different fronts. Helping operators just simply get proper descriptions in there about their Pro V balls. It's like that stuff can all be automated and cleaned up really well, right? So that's what I'm seeing short term, long term. But the dangers is what we don't know as well.
Yes, of course. And Scott, maybe yourself as an operator, what do you see as the opportunities and the concerns?
Yeah, so some ways that we're already using AI at our facilities, we've gone through every golf course's website and have pulled out the text from the websites and rewrote it for SEO and keyword optimization and pasted that back into the websites. We're working with Chatbase right now to create chatbots. So, whether you're a private club, and you want to bring in like your bylaws and things like that and put that in your member portal and have members be able to ask questions like, hey, can I wear jeans to the facility today? Well, no, our policy is, it has to be after November 1 before you can wear jeans to the facility. The nice thing about those chatbots is you can link them to your sitemap on your website. So, they can have all the information from your website to answer questions like, do you have rental clubs? Do you give golf lessons? You name it. And then to put them on your website is pretty simple. We're using it to help, grammatically write emails that are effective, respond to reviews. And for photo and video edits, we're using those types of things. And we've started to get into writing songs. So if you've seen Suno, we're writing our own songs for member guests and upcoming events and things like that, where, you don't have to go through the traditional process of trying to get the rights to use a certain song when you can write your own that you can use for it. So those are a variety of ways. But one of the things I would say that I think is important, no matter whether you're a management company or you're at a facility, is don't make this a one-person job. AI will be so consuming for one person to take on. Form a little small committee at your facility. Get together a couple times a month. Talk about different tools that you're seeing. Analyze those tools to Matt's point. Like, is this going to be detrimental to your facility, you think? Or is this something that you can think might help move your facility forward? Start to engage a variety of people within the organization. We did that starting back in January. We get together twice a month, and we've got running lists of all kinds of apps and what do they do and what's the cost, and do we think they're good? Do we think they're bad? So I think going through those types of processes will help make it easier instead of one person trying to consume it all.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Scott. And whether you're a tech person or not a tech person, there's someone in your organization that is a tech person, and there's no denying that AI is here and is being. I mean, it's always been here. It's been here for a long time. Actually, it's just become a bit of more of a buzzword that we're all talking about. But when you think about ChatGPT and talk about technology and about the ability to create content now that doesn't require $20,000 camera, it's pretty unbelievable. Lastly, for you, Scott, because there's a question from one of our listeners about we talk about high tech leading to high touch. And we talk about, where you're going to get to the point where you never see a person. You walk in a facility and you've already booked and paid for your tea time. You've already signed your digital waiver because we've sent it to you, and you're already showing up on the first tee. And you've got a GPS cart, so there's no marshal or first tee starter because you've been given it in advance. Do you worry about people not visiting the shop and buying retail and technology removing the people customer service experience? Is my question for Scott.
Yes and no. I think many of those impulse buys they're gonna come into the golf shop and make. We do send a 24-hour confirmation that's automated from our Pitch CRM tool that automatically tells people what to expect for that day. We built in some stuff that can factor in the weather and things like that. But that's an automated way that you can say, hey, don't forget to stop in and grab a sleeve of balls or some range balls before you head to the tee. I do think that one of the things, and I don't want to speak for Matt, but I think one of the things that you'll probably see from Lightspeed in the future is, the ability to buy those things through the check-in process. I know it was a piece of feedback that we provided in the beta testing of it, was just the ability to those impulse items, golf tees, golf balls, range balls, being able to buy those through the check-in process and have them right in your cart, or At the end of the day, put them in the beverage cart too. You can put some sleeves of balls or some golf gloves in the beverage cart, and that's another touch point that you can hit people up when you're going around the golf course.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, gentlemen. Scott, we're out of time. I told these guys it wouldn't be longer than an hour, and we're 49 seconds over an hour. And I learned a long time ago as a speaker that you better leave the audience before the audience leaves you. So, gentlemen, it's been wonderful having you guys both here today on our live Q&A call. I know Gig Nation is better off for it. Matt, people can reach out to you anytime, I'm sure, with Lightspeed and learn more about Lightspeed and find you on LinkedIn and find you on the Lightspeed connection and anywhere else. Your email address, we'll put it in our posting. And for those of you that are Lightspeed customers and are not Golf Industry Guru customers, we have a very special offer right now for Lightspeed clients for Golf Industry Guru. And Scott, wonderful. Thanks so much. If someone wants to reach out, I know they can see you and find you on the Landscapes Golf Management website that talks about your company and all the different facilities that you guys oversee.
Absolutely.
Mr. Massey, another successful gig live Q&A call. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful July 23rd. And as always, we will see you next time on The Inside.